Hi, this is Judge Harry Bowden with Child Support Court Vodcast. Make sure you go to childsupportcourttv.com. Check out the new videos, our sponsors, and get to Ask Judge Harry, where you can call in every Tuesday from 9:30 to 11 and ask Judge Harry. Thank you for being a loyal viewer of Child Support Court, the Vodcast, with Judge Harry Bowden.
GetMyBabyMoney.com.
Get my baby money. Get your money, baby, get your money, money. Get my baby money.
Welcome back to Child Support Court, the Vodcast with Judge Harry Bowden. And we're back with Janelle Dawson, the one and only therapist that you need to see. And me. All right. Where were we now?
Just talking about setting boundaries.
Okay.
And so if you've proven yourself to be this way, I'm only going based off of what I see. And one thing I will say is, after one or two instances, you can't really say that that's that person's pattern. Yeah, because what we do is make overgeneralizations where we're like, oh, that person did it one time, they're like this, but that's not necessarily true.
Is something more behind that?
Well, it's more so like, okay, if somebody messes up once, sometimes we're like, oh, that person always does but that's not necessarily true. Now, if they've done it like 4 or 5 times, okay, now we got a pattern going on here, right? Okay. So if I've given you an opportunity and you've proven there's evidence, multiple occasions of you doing the same thing. Yeah, for me to protect my child, I got to set boundaries with you. So now, in a sense, you have to work your way back up to show me that you will show up for my child. But until then, I do have to protect my child.
What about the issue where you have a parent who gets a new person that they're interested in? What effect does it have with the parent who is a primary custodian, say, has an issue with this new person? What kind of issues does that cause with the child?
Yeah, that's another one. And again, going back to boundaries. Because if I get a new person, it really shouldn't affect how we are parenting.
Say what?
If I get somebody new, it should not affect how we parent.
Is that because you set boundaries before, or you set boundaries once it happens?
So if you're choosing to co-parent, that's what it strictly needs to be. And a lot of people cross boundaries. You
mean they leave the back door open?
Oh,
shit. Did I say that?
They leave that back door open, and it causes confusion in terms of what this relationship is again.
Who does it cause confusion with?
The parents, which then will trickle down to the child.
Unless they have an agreement.
Unless they've agreed, okay, we're going to work on this again. We're going to get back together.
Is that because the emotional part, can you control, how is the lack of control of the emotions the real problem?
Yeah.
Really? In your practice or experience, who have you found has more lack of control of emotion? Men or women?
That's a hard one.
Why? Just based on your experience.
Well,
was it 50-50?
Right. It's hard to say, just because I do think that women have more freedom to be emotionally expressive because we're women. Because society said, as women, you have emotions. That's it's a woman trait, right? It's not a woman trait; it's a human trait.
Okay.
But because society has given us that permission to be able to be a little bit more expressive with our emotions, we can be, but it doesn't mean that we have control over it. Okay? Now, on the men's side, men tend to be a little bit more logical because they don't recognize that their logical response is sometimes very emotional too, but they don't realize that they don't view it as that.
Whoa! You said a lot. Whoa, Billy. You said men, and I'm going to put me in there. We're logical, more logical, presumably. But we don't realize that our logic is based upon emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At what point in time do we have a pecking order and start realizing that the logic needs to supersede the emotion, or the emotion needs to supersede the logic?
From having conversations like these, going to therapy, because a lot of people don't realize that there has to be a balance between the two. So yes, men are more logical, but they don't realize that there's still underlying emotions that are at work, that are still playing. So if you understand a little bit more about your emotions, then yes, you could be a little bit more logical in how you may approach situations. Because then I can speak to something I told a lot of my men clients is sometimes you got to speak to her emotions. You got to speak to it. But if you don't have any awareness of it and you're just rah, 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 you're angry, you're yelling at her. Guess what? If you're yelling at somebody, there's an emotional undertone there. And you don't understand it, but you think you're being logical because, I mean, it makes sense. But you don't realize that the emotion is actually what is driving the conversation.
Is that the connection that moms are able to get to the children and men are not able to, mostly? Maybe,
yeah. Because, and it's interesting because there's a difference too in how we raise the boys versus the girls. So I was actually talking to somebody the other day about how we raise children. When, for example, if my 4-year-old was to trip and fall, she's going to cry. And I'm going to go over there and give her a hug, right?
Right.
Let a 4-year-old boy trip and fall. And he starts crying because he hurt himself. What is the parent going to do?
Get up, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what dad's going to do. Why are you crying? Right. You don't cry,
yeah.
Right.
But dads don't do that to girls.
Yeah. You're right.
So from the beginning, we shut boys down with their emotions from the beginning. So that's why there's no awareness of the emotion, but the emotion is still there. So if I trip and fall, okay, my dad just yelled at me, basically told me to get it together, stop crying. So the next time I fall, I'm still hurting, but I gotta act like I don't hurt.
Yeah.
So how many times does that happen over the course of a young boy's life that then follows him into adulthood?
And vice versa, when you have a young girl who is told that she can't get hurt or doesn't need to be hurt.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And then that's the thing with women is, like I said, even though we can be a little bit more expressive because we maybe didn't learn how to process our emotions.
Oh, you brought up another whole term. How do you process your emotions?
So you can process through talking and writing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, like for me, when I was younger, I used to have a journal, a diary. So if I was doing God knows what at the time, I would write down how I was feeling. And so writing it down, and I tell all my clients, when you write stuff down, you're able to actually see what you're thinking and make sense of it. Because when you can actually see it versus it being in your head, you're like, okay, maybe I was tripping.
Well, let me ask you this. Is doing also processing, kicking a can, punching a bag? Is that processing or what?
It's transferring energy, but it's not processing because you may not understand, because processing is really about understanding. You don't understand why you mad and why you kicking a can and stuff like that. But it just transfers that emotional energy, so it might get it out, but you may not know exactly what it was that triggered you.
So you're saying that the process of processing leads to understanding. Mm-hmm. Whereas the transfer is simply an outlet, but may not lead to understanding. Is that pretty consistent when adults get together at the club? Oh, in the club. And next thing you know, they transferred emotions, one processing and one transferring. And the next thing you know, you have a new person who is who they are. And have to figure it out with two people who still don't know who they are.
Right.
Wow. So how can we help? how can we, and I say we because one of the things we do on this show is that we are really wanting to help, and what I call the issue of child support is also parent support. Okay? So, how do we lend that parent support for somebody who transfers and doesn't process? I know I'm getting heavy. Judge Bowden's getting heavy. Hold on, we'll be right back. You stay there. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Getting married has been made easier. Don't wait. If you are in love, get your wedding ceremony performed virtually or in person at one of our many locations. Get your nuptials in no time. Now you have a friend in the wedding business. Go to streamingvows.com today. And we're back with Janelle Dawson, the one and only therapist that I have. Let's go. All right, so how do, when you have that dichotomy of the male and the female, one processes, one transfers, how do they impact that child? Is it an issue where before they can actually help that child learn how they need to be, they first need to work on themselves?
Yep. So I believe in the top-bottom approach, like top-down approach, where a lot of times people will try to work with the kids because it's like, okay, the kids are the future, right? So a lot of people want to work with the kids and, really teach them But what happens when that child goes back into the environment that is not good for them?
That's like when they get in the court system and they go to a program or somebody.
Yep.
Okay.
So yes, it starts with the parents. The parents have to be in a much better space, an emotionally healthy place, a mentally healthy place. Because if they are there, then they are capable of teaching the children the skills and the tools and knowledge, all that they know to make them healthy adults. So I wrote a book. I don't think I told you.
No, you didn't. What's the name of your book?
It's called The Mommy Makeover of the Mind.
The Mommy Makeover of the Mind. And where can we get this book?
Amazon.
On Amazon. The Mommy Makeover of the Mind. Now, do we have a daddy makeover?
No, I do not have that. People have been asking about that.
Yes.
But, men can read it too, because you can still get a lot out of it, because you can apply it to just parenthood in general.
Okay.
But that was my whole purpose of writing the book, was to teach moms to maintain their identity while being a parent. But also, if you're in an emotionally healthy place, then you can teach your child what is best for them.
Now I'm gonna start something right here. Why not have a counterpart dads?
I just haven't sat down and wrote it. I've had a lot of people ask me about that one. But I just haven't, because a lot of times moms are the ones that are the main person that is
primary caretaker.
Yeah.
Primary custody. And that's something that we talk about on this show. That doesn't mean that dads are incapable.
That is absolutely true. They are absolutely capable. But I think that because of how society has put us in these roles, in these positions, that a lot of times men just assume, oh, that's what you naturally supposed to be this person. But it's like, but we're doing this together. We're parents. And so if we're parents, we should be doing this together. We should both be, go ahead.
No. We should both be practicing.
We should both be practicing
these norms that we want our child to have.
Yeah.
And when we don't practice these norms, then we have a child who does not come into a whole person. Ms. Dawson, thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to ask you if you would come back.
Sure.
So listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Keep those calls, those emails, those comments coming in. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on Child Support Court, the Vodcast with Judge Harry Bowden. Take care now.